Alright, I'm here doing a very, very different video blog. I want to talk about what my biggest problem is with mainstream Christianity. And it's actually the whole premise. A few disclaimers. Number one, yes, if you've been seeing my videos, my new glasses still haven't got here, so yes, they are broken. A few disclaimers. Another disclaimer, I am Mormon. I'm doing this for two reasons. One, because I tried writing this in a blog, but it was gasped with spelling and grammatical errors that I'd rather just stick to video blogging right now than actually writing blogs, because it seems a lot easier. So, to me, it's this whole idea of, if you believe in me, you will be saved, which is fundamental to Christianity. And it's not a bad thing, but it creates a lot of problems. I've usually framed this question in a way surrounding a story I read about 6 months ago involving this 15-year-old Muslim girl who was murdered by her parents for no good reason. Apparently she was looking at a boy and her parents poured acid on her in a way to, restore the family honor or whatever. And so this leads me to my central question, which is this girl in heaven? Is she in hell? I've asked a variety of mainstream evangelicals this question, and I usually get three answers. The number one answer is the very strict Augustine or very strict Calvinist version, which is yes, she's in hell. She had 15 years. If she sought God, she would have found God. She had plenty of opportunities. Her sins sent her to hell. And this is the big thing. See, what they want to do is they want to say that she's in sin, she's in hell because of her sins. Not that she's in hell because of God, which to me is kind of splitting a hair. Because God defines what a sin is. As I said, I'm Mormon, right? Now, in Mormonism, one of the things that evangelicals consider the most blasphemous is this idea that there is this universal right and wrong that has always existed, right? Good was never created, evil was never created, good and evil just always were. Which, they don't like because it puts these things over God since He didn't create them. But the problem is, if God defines sin, if God says, not believing in me is a sin, and therefore you're going to hell for this, then God is putting you in hell. So whether it's your sin or God, it doesn't matter, because God defines what the sin is. And so the strict hyper-Calvinist version basically will state that this girl is in hell because she had chances no man's promised tomorrow. And to me, this makes God seem very heartless and arbitrary, because God technically can reveal himself to whoever he wants. So why wouldn't he reveal him? Why not give this girl a Paul-like experience? He appeared to Paul on the road to Damascus and say, Paul, why wouldn't he do that to this poor girl? Does he not love her as much as Paul? I don't know. But instead we have to believe that for whatever reasons in the mind of God, she's being tortured forever. The other answer, of course, is no. This is a version that comes from a reading of Romans 1. that takes the idea that somebody can look at nature, and if they've never heard, they will be judged by the code written on their heart by finding God in nature. God's less of a jerk in this situation, but the problem with this belief is that, of course, now that there's an exception to the rule about you having to believe in Jesus Christ to be saved, right? If the exception to the rule exists, then the rule cannot be considered absolute. And if the rule is not absolute, then you can be saved without confessing with your mouth and accepting Jesus Christ into your heart, which of course prevents a problem, because why would you do missionary work? If people in rural China are going to be judged off what's written on their heart, not whether or not they've confessed with their lips and their heart that Jesus is the Christ, then why would you ever tell them? Because you could go there, you could tell them, and then they'd reject it, and you're giving them the chance to go to hell. Where they might have not had that chance before. Whereas, now they'll say, well, God commands it. Well, then God commands you to basically send more to hell, because anybody who rejects you is going to hell. It just seems so irrational to me. And maybe this is coming from a Mormon background where everybody gets some measure of salvation. Like in Mormonism, even the worst person in the world still gets the telestial kingdom, which is still some level of glory. So the idea that, everybody's going to get something, you might get different things, but everybody gets something. Maybe that's why this idea is so unfathomable to me. Why, God would either A, send this girl to hell, or B, not, but if he doesn't send her to hell, then there's not really a point, right? One of the criticisms of Mormon work for the dead is if you can just be saved when you're dead, what's the point of being here? Which of course is a different discussion for a different day. But that is all largely problematic. Largely problematic for me, because if there is an exception to the rule, if the interpretation, now not every Christian interprets Romans 1 this way, but if Romans 1 does provide an exception to the rule about having to confess with your lips that Jesus is the Christ, then there's an exception there. And if there's an exception, then you don't have to accept that Jesus is the Christ, which means you can be saved independent of Christianity, which creates issues. And the third answer is the most honest answer, is I don't know. I just have faith that God's going to work it out. I actually like that answer better than the other two, but it really doesn't answer the question. And essentially, this is the reason I can't be a mainstream Christian, because I need a God that's fair. I need a God that makes sense. And none of this makes sense to me, that heaven or hell is basically just based on whether or not you confess something or not. If I'm misunderstanding, any Christian is free to publish on this post and say how wrong I am or what I'm misunderstanding. If I am misunderstanding something, please feel free to correct me, but that's kind of how I feel. I will see y'all later. Bye.